where it is. That's our typical emergency, and those are happening everywhere right now. This is a little different type of emergency because we might not be able to maintain the current alignment. So it doesn't really fit the emergency scenario because we have to go off that alignment.
Well, my question is about both sides. I mean, because you got, somebody says, you know, somebody has to decide there's an overriding public benefit, let's say, to cutting some old-growth redwood. I mean, you know, normally it's a governmental agency. I mean,
and that governmental agency is Caltrans.
So they can
there's the potential that we kick it up to federal highways, but they've usually left this stuff to the states, and we've usually done this on our own. As far as we're like the lead agency making that decision, but we do not make those decisions in a vacuum. We need to get permits from these agencies. We'll need to coordinate with parks. We've partnered with parks and tribes. Through the environmental process, the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, and California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, we do have participatory and quiz here. It's like participatory, cooperating, collaborating agencies. So agencies will work with us at various different levels, and we need to get their buy-in on the various alternatives we're studying and the various alternatives that we're choosing as a preferred alternative before we can really move forward. So we don't make it in a vacuum. It will be one agency that says, you know, and it likely will be Caltrans. Caltrans is deciding to approve this project based on these various constraints. And, you know, that takes, for this one, that's going to take like, you know, 10 plus years of environmental studies and documents and coordinating with the agencies to make sure everybody is okay with the trade-offs that we're making.
Then the most likely scenario, you know, based on Richardson Grove, which has monumentally less adverse effects by everybody's would know. You know, you take it to a point, you do a full environmental disclosure and impact assessment and all that, all the agencies buy in, then you get sued. And then you basically have to prevail in lawsuits before you could actually conduct a project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because anybody that doesn't agree with you is going to sue the heck out of you.
But we assume we'll get sued on this one. This is just
Right.
too big for anybody to ignore.
Could
Probably regardless of which alternative we take.
Yeah, NEPA lends itself to that, so it's going to happen.
Yeah, NEPA and CEQA. We do assume, like, if we choose A2 and we go down that route, we'll probably have to deal with tree sitters. You know, we'll definitely get sued and have to deal with tree sitters and probably have to prove ourselves in court. Like, yeah, it'll be the full gamut. And that's why we're looking at, like, you know, easily 10 years just to get through the environmental document phase, and then another like 5 years of final design and permitting. The last estimate I saw was like opening up a new route in 2032. I don't know how realistic that is.
How long will it take? It was like 20 years of environmental?
Something like that, because they got held up in various aspects of like picking around.
How much is, say, your average cost per year just for the current kind of maintenance you do? And is it a totally crazy idea to actually do nothing and just continue? How do we know we're trucking on what the technology is going to be in 20 years?
We're spending a couple million a year. You know, some of the numbers are the last 10 years. It's been, I think, like 30 million. So it's approaching the point that if you look at it with, like, you know, okay, so 50 years out, like if we're spending an average this much per year, yeah, we probably should just build a bypass around it. We are looking at that. That's actually one of the slides I removed because it's more of a project management thing. I was trying to get these down from an hour presentation. But yeah, that's a concern, and we are pushing that dollar amount.
This Berlin Wall consideration about migratory routes. In Rocky Mountain West, they've had a lot of success with going under highways. Have you looked at that as that
Yeah,
very
so
costly
there's
way
a
to
couple
go?
things going on here. One is wildlife connectivity has come up a lot for highways in general across the states and in Europe. A couple different approaches have been taken. You know, one is there's a lot of wildlife movement along riparian corridors. So, you know, we're on the side over here, we're crossing these creeks, we are pushing design to say, like, none of these fills with a culvert, we just want bridges. You know, big, long bridges so wildlife can go under it along the riparian corridors. Another idea is wildlife overpasses. Those work really well if you have like a concentration of wildlife moving in one area. You You know, like at the side of the lake, all the wildlife comes down on the east side of the lake. So you put an overpass on the east side of the lake that the wildlife can use, and that works out. We are looking into like, okay, what wildlife would be crossing this area? Are they traveling on ridges or creeks? And what would be the migratory pathway where it would be most beneficial to put one of those type structures? You know, so the first thing is like more bridges, less fills and culverts. The second thing is where might we put overpasses in? You know, third is making sure any kind of median barrier, the animals can get across that. I think that was a potential problem with Prairie Creek as well. We've already, this spot right here was kind of a big cut through that ridge. They're already looking at maybe we can just do a small tunnel under that. It's way more geotechnically stable than the coast area that we were looking at. And so I think there's like a 600-foot tunnel there in the current design, which saved a lot on the amount of cut and disposal we had to do. So in short, yes, we're looking at those kinds of things and figuring out what would work in this area.
We have time for one more question.
You had your hand up first there.
I have 3 questions. How far inland is the proposed bypass from the existing? How many
We're looking at, so
miles?
here's a mile, looks like about a mile in from the existing up to probably like 2 miles right there.
Okay, I don't have the numbers.
Yeah.
There's a poster up there.
There's the 1 mile.
Okay. And then are there other geologic events that impact the rate of the slide, like an earthquake or, you know, anything else that,
You know,
that impacts?
geotechnical stuff happens so episodically, and we can't see what's happening in those slide planes, so it's kind of, in some ways, a developing science. And my understanding is that there is the potential, like, you know, if this thing is soaked after like months and months of rain, kind of like it is now, and we get an earthquake, kind of like what happens here, it might move more, you know, and there's the potential that that's one of the hard things that we're dealing with. There's the potential that this thing could fail at any time if we get just the right conditions and the right kind of earthquake to shake it just the right way. Like we might have a catastrophic failure there that puts us into those scenarios where we don't have where we can't fix the highway quickly. So, but historically we haven't seen that happen, and we've been having earthquakes here for hundreds of years. As you know, it puts us into that. We don't know. It's probably a low risk. We're anticipating a very low risk of that catastrophic failure from an earthquake.
What about fire, if you have a big fire that burns?
I don't think that would be as big of an issue. Unless it burned up the old-growth redwood forest, and that was no longer a concern. Yeah, the fires usually don't affect the highways too much in that respect.
Okay. So, Jason, thank you so much. This was fascinating, right? We all and he's able to stay a little later if people want to continue to talk and ask questions. So, thank you. I forgot to say this earlier. But in appreciation for your talk today, we're making a donation in your name to the Wheelchair Foundation.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much. This was fascinating. And what we understand is they'll be back. Somebody will be back to talk to us.
I heard that,
Yeah.
We'll see. It'd be the same talk if it was me again.
Like an ask more questions. So our quote for the day is, "I'm a reflection of my community." So go out there and look good.